It's a measure of how wrong things have gotten that nonagenarian Holocaust survivors are challenging the European Medicines Agency to try to protect the children of Europe. When Holocaust survivors warn that your policy of otherization is dangerously close to the path that led to the Holocaust, you should listen. The Holocaust was enabled by public health concerns. Otherization was what allowed the segregation into worthy and unworthy. It did not end well. It takes an elite arrogance to dismiss their concerns and to imply they did not understand the social engineering process that they lived through. But to lie to them, and then hope they would not notice the lie? That is what the European Medicines Agency did. And we noticed the lie. We put this video together for the Holocaust survivors who were brave enough to speak out. Courage, from geriatrics. Courage, when most of the world is cowering behind a cloth mask hoping to comply their way to freedom. The concerns were: first, the otherization processes of vaccinated versus unvaccinated are exactly the same as the stratagems used by Himmler and Mengele. Second, the vaccines are experimental. Third, the vaccine is inappropriate to give to children since the vaccine is potentially more harmful than the disease. The EMA replied. Their answer was both offensive and wrong. The EMA wrote that the Holocaust survivors' concerns might be perceived as demeaning the suffering and dignity of those who experienced the terrible events of the Holocaust. They actually wrote that to actual Holocaust survivors. They then followed that with these statements. Because COVID vaccines had been granted a marketing authorization, it was not an experimental product. That all 4 vaccines have marketing authorization, and COVID-19 vaccines have been evaluated following the same stringent scientific requirements for quality, safety and efficacy as for any medicine currently on the EU market. And lastly, that any adverse side effects reported after vaccination were not provably associated with vaccination, so should not be counted with vaccination as the cause. Their response was a lie, and I'll show why. Starting simply, COVID vaccines were granted a conditional marketing authorization. This part of the response is true. One of the recommended conditions was that where feasible the study of trial participants would be continued. The planned end date is May 2023. Which by definition means the experiment is ongoing. Next, the EMA state that COVID vaccines were evaluated to the same level as any medicine currently on the EU market. Their response is dated September 15, 2021, and it is a lie. The reason it is a lie is that in July 2021 a Freedom of Information request was published. The disclosure established that Pfizer never handed over patient-level data to the UK regulators. Pfizer in particular has a track record of criminal behavior in promoting medicines. According to the disclosures, not one of the FDA, TGA, MHRA or PHE had seen the patient-level data. It is a regulator's duty to examine this data before granting approval, else you risk being fooled by profiteers. The only conclusion is that the Pfizer vaccine was not correctly regulated. So on one hand the EMA say it is as scrutinized and safe as any EU medicine. On the other hand you have proof that no one examined the data. The EMA were aware of this in July, yet they regurgitate the same line in September. Pfizer's trial results are odd too. To summarize, during the trial the measured outcome of interest was preventing infection with COVID. During the trial Pfizer had a 95% efficacy at preventing COVID infection. Strangely, post-trial the vaccine efficacy at preventing infection is near zero. The reason is to do with IgA and IgG production in response to epithelial versus serological exposure. You are asked to believe that Pfizer's vaccine was wonderful at preventing infection during the trial, and terrible at preventing infection in the real world. Obviously there's nothing here that should trigger the attention of a regulator. This is one of the largest misdirections of our time. Lastly, the EMA's claim that the association of illnesses after vaccination should not be used to imply vaccination as a cause is a tragic double standard. Because that method of associative counting is precisely what is used for COVID death statistics. COVID death counts are with COVID, not because of COVID, which massively inflates the fatality rates and contaminates the data for future analysis. 2 paragraphs after deriding the use of associative counting for vaccines. The EMA uses the exact same associative counting method when reporting the 750,000 deaths associated with COVID in Europe. According to the EMA, it is okay to use associative counting for with COVID deaths, but not for with vaccine deaths. It's weasel wording, a convenient double standard. And it's a lie. Because George Floyd tested positive for COVID and is technically a dead with COVID statistic. To prove how safe the vaccines were, the EMA included lists of reported deaths and side effects. Strangely, the list missed the main candidates, such as ischemic stroke and heightened occurrences of nerve disorders associated with latent viral infections. They did list some numbers though. We like numbers, they have an unerring ability to deliver truths. According to the EMA, 9 people have been recorded as having capillary leak syndrome following vaccination. 9 out of 96 million doses administered. What are the odds that in my personal sphere of 400 direct and indirect contacts I would know someone who had it immediately following vaccination? 1 in 26,000. It's far less when adjusted for temporal coincidence, but that complicates the explanation of the analysis. The EMA also gives thrombocytopenia counts. And it comes in at 607 cases from 79 million people vaccinated. What are the odds that I would also know a person who suffered an immune thrombotic thrombocytopenia immediately following vaccination? The odds I would know someone with that condition are less than 1 in 130,000. The odds that I would know 2 people who have these conditions is 1 in 3 billion. I am either incredibly unlucky, or the EMA reported side effect data is wrong by several orders of magnitude. The Holocaust victims were trying to raise concerns. The EMA owed them the dignity to treat their concerns with respect. Otherization is undeniably the process by which Holocausts occur. The population hygiene route is the exact path the fascists proceeded down. It is not incorrect to alert people to this. The Holocaust survivors are basically correct in their assessment, at least within an honest margin of error. The EMA reply was dishonest, and was deliberately, knowingly, so. We appreciate and respect the courage that the Holocaust survivors showed in challenging the EMA. They did it for you and your children. That deserves your respect too. Be kind to each other. FTS.